When I saw the image of George Floyd being strangled by this police officer, I felt outraged.
It's just kind of like unreal that something like that could happen.
It was a very painful and traumatic scene to watch. I felt pain, not only because that was another human being, but it was symbolic of systematic racism that is in this country.
We are seeing Black trauma constantly on the news here in the United States. The difference with George Floyd specifically was that we were all at home. But Black trauma is something that has unfortunately somehow been normalized and we become numb to it.
Welcome to Diaspora Life. My name is Persil. We are doing the third episode since we started the show. And guess what? I'm privileged to have Chris with me right here in the country. He just landed from the US. Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Persil. It's been long coming.
Oh, yes.
It's my pleasure to join you today in Nairobi to host the show. Viewers, welcome to Diaspora Life. This is how we roll.
So this show today will have an overview of how it is growing up, being raised as a Black family in the US. We are basing this story specifically on the recent happenings that took place in 2020 about Black Lives Matter, and specifically basing on Floyd's story. So Chris, tell us, what should our viewers expect?
Viewers, today we bring you a very special show on the lives and times of the Black people in America. For many, it's been more than 400 years. For some like me, who lives in America and raising a family there right now, it's been 20 years, but I can tell you for sure that raising a family in America, especially a Black family, is something that nobody should ever look forward to because of the racially instigated environment in America.
Enjoy the show.
When I saw the image of George Floyd being strangled by this police officer, I felt outraged and I was angry. I was disgusted. I felt pain, not only because that was another human being, but it was symbolic of systematic racism that is in this country. So like most people, I felt outraged. It was a very painful and traumatic scene to watch.
It's just kind of like unreal that something like that could happen just in this day and age, you know, at our time that we're living in, 2021, 2019, or, you know, when these events are happening, and that it's been going on for so long. And there's so many cases of this that have gone unpunished a lot of times. It's like police shootings and things like that, and the extent to which the officers are protected is just for like things that are very heinous and very at times intentional.
One thing that I'll say is that it was very traumatic to see that, and unfortunately it wasn't new in that we are seeing Black trauma constantly on the news here in the United States. The difference with George Floyd specifically was that we were all at home. No one was out and about and doing anything because of COVID-19. So we were all forced to watch it, regardless of what media outlet you chose to watch. Somehow you saw it. Even if you don't watch the news, it was there on social media. And so that's what really made that unique and different. But Black trauma is something that has unfortunately somehow been normalized and we become numb to it.
When the video of a white policeman kneeling on a Black man's neck went viral last year, the world was outraged. But for the Black community in America, that was just a normal day because they're used to this kind of treatment from law enforcement. In our episode today, we feature Black trauma, the experiences of Black people in America under law enforcement. When Dr. Nathan Wangusi saw the video of a policeman kneeling on George Floyd's neck until he snapped life out of him, he was outraged.
It was a very painful and traumatic scene to watch.
Because George Floyd's murder took place during the COVID-19 pandemic and at a time when the whole world was on lockdown, and therefore many people from around the world watched it live on TV. Many, especially those from around the world, saw America in a way they've never seen it before. For the first time, many were exposed to a racially ravaged country in which a section of one race seemed to be committed to the extermination and elimination of another. The shock of that incident, in which a white policeman casually murdered a black man over an alleged $20 fake note, in view of many spectators, started off worldwide protests. For Wangusi, though, who has lived in the US more than half his life, that was just another day in America.
So my experience with the police, to be honest, for the most part has been positive, but positive depending on where in this country you are. So it's pretty well known that when you're in the South or in the deep South, race relations between black people and the police are significantly more strained. I have been stopped by the police on many occasions, on instances when I felt the only reason I was stopped was because they identified me as a person of color. One of the most traumatic experiences I had with the police back in university in Gainesville, in Florida, was one of my fellow Africans. He was a Ghanaian student, was shot by the police, and apparently what had happened was he was praying quite loudly in his house. So another student called the police because they felt that it was a disturbance, which is a justified reason maybe. But when the police came, they made a forced entry. There was some sort of confrontation, and he was shot on the face for no apparent reason. And under normal circumstances, you'd say that it was an error in judgment. But the fact that this is systemic, it happens to a lot of people. Whether you're talking about Breonna Taylor, in this case George Floyd, we know that this is systemic, and because the police is biased against black people.
All lives matter! And black lives matter! All lives matter! And black lives matter! All lives matter! And black lives matter!
On many occasions, Dr. Wangusi has come face to face with racially motivated murders of black people. In fact, that's why he joined the Black Lives Matter movement when it was launched. Wangusi was in the streets of Orlando, Florida, marching alongside thousands of Americans following the murder of George Floyd.
Regardless of whether you're an African of African or African American descent, from the perspective of a racist white person or a racist white system, you're considered black. And as a person of color from Africa, you have double jeopardy, because you're not only black but you're also foreign. So you have two targets on your back. And you can do one of two things, which is you stay quiet and capitulate, or when you get the opportunity, or when there's a social movement around issues that are important and affect you, you come out and speak up and speak out. And one of the things that this society protects is free speech. So I felt it necessary, having experienced and knowing people who have been affected directly by police violence, I felt it necessary to go out and speak on their behalf. Here's the fact: if you went to any state, any prison today, you will find Africans, you will find Kenyans who have been imprisoned wrongfully because of this issue. So regardless of whether you care or don't care about these issues, they are going to affect you. And you can choose to do one of two things. It's either to keep quiet or to speak up. So I felt that it was necessary to add to the chorus of voices who are calling for justice, not only for the family of George Floyd, but for the black community, and to also oppose systemic racism in this country.
Because of his involvement in the Black Lives Matter movement and many years of social justice activism, Wangusi has a deep understanding of racism and black discrimination in the US more than many people. That's why whenever he goes, he patiently explains to young African migrants the meaning of systemic racism in America.
So systemic racism means that this trend or this behavior is not only ingrained in individual actions, it's also a part of not only the culture but the public and political systems in which a population live. So in the case of black versus white in the United States of America, or racism against black people in this country, it goes back centuries, and this started with the enslavement of black people by white people. It was an institution, it was an economic system in which black people were used as forced labor, and then for various reasons, including the fact that there was mechanization and the politics of the day was not tolerant to this idea of slavery, this system collapsed. But the remnants of the way the white society related and behaved towards the black society remained. And what this meant is black people were still considered as second-class citizens. They were discriminated against. And then over time, again, the system started to reject that. You had the Reconstruction, but when the states at that time started to again institute legal regimes that were oppressive, famously known as the Jim Crow laws, in the early 1900s, and then the civil rights movement came after that, and they also challenged that status quo, and black people got certain rights, including voting rights. The schools and public institutions were desegregated, but the attitudes remained, and some of the legal thought behind this legislation remained. So that's what makes it systemic, because one group disadvantages another group in almost every sector of the society, whether it's in healthcare, access to education, access to public transport, access to upward mobility. These kind of behaviors and systems are embedded. That's what you really mean by having systemic racism.
It's the reason he believes Africans of recent migration cannot afford to think that the fight for racial justice in America should be left to African Americans or Africans of slave descent.
So African immigrants cannot afford to sit out this movement. The struggle of black people in America is the struggle of black people around the world. If we succeed here, we can succeed in other parts of the world. Police brutality, inequality, poverty that affects black people disproportionately, lack of access to health. Those things double affect immigrants, both because they are black and also because they're foreigners. So Africans cannot afford to sit out these issues, because these issues affect them directly, and they affect their communities and their children directly.
What are your views about what just happened?
A person like that gentleman said, these things happen so regularly that it's become normal. The issues that people like us, born in Kenya,
yeah,
and I'm now raising a family in America, go through every day. I have 2 teenage boys, and I can tell you for sure that we hardly go to sleep until they're back home, and we're sure that they're back home, the doors are closed. That's when we can sleep. And this is just not only me. Majority of the black families go through this every day. So that's why some of these things are very emotive, because truly it's a very, very trying moment raising a black family in America as we speak right now. And especially during the period of the former President Trump, it was crazy, because suddenly, even the police had now the mandate to do whatever they want when it comes to black families.
What is the next segment entailing?
In part 2 of the story, we bring you the experiences of an interracial family. This is a family of a father who is Kenyan, a mother who is American, and how they're trying to navigate this, especially following the outburst around Floyd and the Black Lives Matter. This is Master Kibet Sitienei. Like former President Barack Obama, young Kibet is also born and is being raised in a mixed-race family in these suburbs in Maryland. In fact, the similarities between this young man and former President Obama are very striking. Okay. What's your name?
My name is Kibet Sitienei.
Repeat again.
Kibet Sitienei.
Kibet Sitienei. You know, he speaks like Obama, so it's.
I get that a lot.
Is that true?
Yeah. All my relatives are always like, "Oh, young Obama."
So Sitienei, where do you go to school?
I go to Wood Middle School, or Wood Middle School.
Okay.
Or I'm going to 8th grade right now.
Okay.
After breaks.
How did you feel when you saw the George Floyd thing, and what do you think about the whole issue of Black Lives Matter?
It's just kind of like unreal that something like that could happen just in this day and age, you know, at our time that we're living in, 2021, 2019, or, you know, when these events are happening, and that it's been going on for so long, and there's so many cases of this that have gone unpunished a lot of times, it's like police shootings and things like that, and the extent to which the officers are protected is just for like things that are very heinous and very at times intentional, right? And even unintentional that are gone unpunished, and a lot of incompetence which is tolerated because the officers are protected by, you know, such laws and police unions, etc. And I think Black Lives Matter, it's bringing attention to something that has been a problem for a long time, and it being in the media and everything, you know, is good.
Young Kibet lives in this area, so fortunately he is not subjected to racial discrimination or prejudices, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't see or feel it. The brutal murder of black men like George Floyd is constantly displayed on national TV in all its ugly forms and manifestations. America is a big country and very diverse. There are regions in the Union, especially in the South and Midwest, where racism is a way of life.
I think I'm very lucky to have that, but in reality, that's not a thing that a lot of people have, right? A lot of people are in schools where it's majority, you know, one race, or sort of they're the odd one out with that. And I don't think I can really relate to that a lot. I mean, I haven't really experienced something like that all my life. Our area especially is very good at, we have a lot of teaching in school against racism and about, you know, issues that pertain to sort of our current year and stuff like that. And my teachers have been all of my teachers have been, you know, progressive about these issues and very open with them on the class. But that's not the reality for a lot of other people, right? In other areas where people are not taught about these things.
The fear of being the next victim of police murder lives in every black man in the US. For parents of black young men, this fear lives in them every waking moment that teenage men are not at home where they can keep an eye on them. Kibet's parents live with such fears.
I don't know. I don't think I had ever really worried about my kids before. And I think that my son had said that we're fortunate because we're in a very diverse area of the country. And so we tend to not think about things. It's almost like we're in a little bubble. And I think that sort of burst our bubble, because then you saw, you know, how tragic, because we usually think of Minnesota as very progressive and an area that these things don't happen. And then it happened. So it was the first time, and then now my son is getting older, my daughter's older, but I think you tend to worry more about your sons. So you start to think about, well, what if they're in a situation, and then you have to worry about them.
It's kind of a really interesting subject because it is very sensitive, and at the same time, part of me says you have to handle it very carefully, because you don't want to throw a scare such that everybody is scared of the police, and at the same time you want everybody to be aware. So they're at an age now where the conversation, unfortunately I haven't really had that sit down, let's talk about this conversation, but my goal is to sit down with my boys and my daughter and simply say, okay, when you experience something, an incident like this, basically you could be dealing with extremist positions where the police or the policeman may have experienced other things and has a carryover from other experiences that's bringing into this situation. So you want to just project an image of who you are. You are a driver, you are an innocent driver, you're driving to work, or you're driving from point A to B, and you get stopped, and if the policeman wants to see your license, you have a license. Show the license. I think there has to be, you just have to make sure you are playing your part, being careful, because at the end of the day you want to go home safely. You don't want to be in handcuffs, you don't want to be pinned down for any reason.
Black trauma is something that has unfortunately somehow been normalized, and we become numb to it, and maybe every 5 years something shakes us. But this has shaken us to a point whereby there is more reporting going on here, which on one hand means that there is a broadened awareness, but on the other hand means that we are constantly consuming Black trauma. And that was especially difficult for me, because this was a season for me as a mom of a boy. My firstborn was a girl, and then I had a son. And that hits a little bit differently, because at the end of the day, I'm Kenyan. I was born in Kenya. I was raised here in America, but my son is 100% American in that he was born here. This is the home that he knows, and the way he's going to be treated, and it might be hard for you if you haven't been here in America, but the way that he will be treated, regardless of the fact that he has Karanja in his name, is going to be the same as if he didn't have that at all. And that's a reality that we have to face here in the diaspora. We have to prepare our children for that, and we have to prepare our children not as immigrants, but as Black Americans too. And that's something that I'm going to be learning. And as long as I make sure that I know that I have not quite arrived, and I'm constantly seeking new ways to empower myself and empower my children, I think we will have learned the lesson of what power we actually have if we continue to strive in that manner.
A couple of days ago, we had a police who shot the girlfriend right here in Westland's constituency, and many other innocent people, civilians. And besides that, there is the case of the Kianjokoma brothers, those who still remember. So these are not issues that just emerged today. There have been issues that have been happening time and time again.
Police brutality is actually a global thing. It happens in Kenya, the cases in Nigeria, in the Middle East, especially in the Caribbean. The police monopolize violence. The only difference between what we are talking about today is because in America, the police treat Black people differently. The same police, if they stop a white person, they treat a lot of those guys with respect. But when it comes to a Black person, the first reaction was, this person is a danger. So that's why in America, it's racially magnified, and it's blown away because selective administration of justice in America, and it's been going on for a long time, more than 400 years ago. since the days of slavery.
You're right about that. Now, viewers, that's all we had for you today. We hope you can join us again next time, same place. Remember, it's Saturday, 5:30 p.m. Kenyan time on KTN News. So make sure you follow us on social media at Diaspora_Life on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and at Persil Telewa on Facebook, at Persil Telewa on Instagram and TikTok. See you next time.
And I'm at Chris Omalwa social media. But before we even go, we want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And please, we are interested in knowing how you're planning to celebrate your Christmas. Send us a picture of the preparations in your house, how the Christmas tree looks like, and if you're planning to go away from home to celebrate with family and friends. Also, share your experiences with us, because this is a Christmas season and we want to really connect with you. See you again next week.
Merry Christmas!
Merry Christmas!